welcome to The Unfolding. I'm Olivier and I'm really grateful you're choosing to spend some time with me. My intention is to explore topics about connection, meaning, and staying human in this digital age. If what you hear feels nourishing, you're welcome to subscribe, like, or follow. It's a simple way of supporting my work and helping it reach others. Thank you.
Echo. Well, what a beautiful name. Is it a name that was given to you or is it a name that you chose?
I'd say it was both. It's interesting. I feel this energy in me of like, oh, I'm about to reveal something that I've never said in any recording or in any podcast or any conversation that's been shared publicly. So Echo is the name that my mother gave me. My biological mother gave me this name, but she didn't raise me. So my grandmother raised me, and my grandmother had a much more traditional name that she chose, which I've always been so resistant to, and that name is Crystal. So it's been said now. It's publicly been said. I've never said that publicly. But yeah, my grandmother names me Crystal, which I find interesting. I'll get to the point of that. But my mother, when she died about 14 years ago, we had a very strained relationship. She didn't raise me. There was a lot of separation, a lot of difficult difficult energies between us. And I did not have a very positive or accepting relationship with her up until her death. But when she died, something shifted in me. And it was like all the hatred, all the separation, it dissolved because I no longer had this person to pin my hatred on or to blame for all of my issues, for her not loving me or giving me what it was that I thought I needed. And she loved this name. She loved this name, Echo. And I had never asked what that name meant or why she chose it. I just thought it was so weird. And when she did call me that as a child, it felt like this strange alternative name that I'd get made fun of for. And I kind of did. You know, if kids found out that was my name, they were constantly, Echo, 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 and getting me to repeat, what is your name? Echo. What is your name? Echo. And so, yeah, I started to go by her name after she died. And I love it. And the way that I relate to it is, you know, an echo is the thing that we leave behind. And my motto in life is to leave things better than I found them. And so whether it's a relationship or collaboration or even a home, how can I leave it with a little bit more love and a little bit more care and compassion, if possible? And so I find it, yeah, really beautiful. And also, Echo doesn't really have its own qualities. It is everything that's come before it, which in a way is quite similar to crystal, because crystal is transparent. You see through it. There's a translucence nature to it. And I thought, oh, interesting. Both of my names are kind of empty. A crystal is kind of empty of color or a specific quality, except for shining light on something else. And so is an echo. An echo is like left behind from the original source. So I was like, oh, in a way, they're both very similar. So this is why I go by Echo, and I really love it now.
Yeah, I find it fascinating how names can have such an impact on our personality and story. My name is Olivier, and Olivier symbolizes the peace and wisdom. Olivier is the olive tree, and there's also the dove that brings back the olive branch after the flood when Noah is waiting to find land again, and now being the symbol of peace, I see that I'm doing mediations between people and this kind of things. I'm like, oh, wait, does this have something to do with my name somehow? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel really grateful. And I've changed my music production name and my mystery school name to Our Echo because I felt like even extending it further than my own individual self. But like, what is our echo? And so I look at humanity and it's like, okay, what is the thing that we're leaving behind? And sometimes I feel a little sad for the things that we're leaving behind, but I'm doing my part to, as much as I can, leave behind more love and more understanding and the ability to hold paradox in my body, in my experience. And so my name has kind of become my life path in a way. It's like I'm walking towards being a better echo than maybe I arrived as.
Really beautiful. Yeah. You spoke a little bit about your childhood growing up. That was in Texas, was it?
Cut and shoot Texas. Like cut you and shoot you is where I'm from. Like literally, that is the name on the map.
What's left of this place for you and in you?
I went back there about 5 years ago to do a healing ceremony on the land that I grew up in. It was kind of a black hole for me for most of my adult life. You know, I'm in my fourth decade in on planet Earth as Echo, and I spent decades away from that place, and I was trying as much as I could to escape it. When I was a teenager, I did everything I could to get away, and when I got away, I thought I will never go back to this place because there was so much abuse and distortion and illusion that I experienced there, and a lot of darkness. And after I was able to come back and to do the healing ceremony on the land, although some of the most heinous and painful and criminal things happened to me on that land, I thought it would be very difficult to go back. I thought this will be really painful. It's going to put me into a process. I was really aligning with my core values and my center to be able to go into that space and to see what it was going to do, how it was going to affect my nervous system. And I was surprised to see that through so much of my traveling and so much of my own inner evolution, I just saw the beauty actually. And I couldn't access that before. You know, when I look back at my childhood, there's so many memories of pain because we really keep the negativity bias of the painful things that happen to us in order to protect ourselves. We need to stack those in order and remember so that we never get hurt again. And so much of my inner world was based around what's going to make me feel safe and what's going to be scary. And when I went there, everything dissolved. And I remember, you know, even though there were fewer moments of happy memories, there were happy memories. And I remember playing softball in the yard with my stepfather, who I only got to have in my life for 4 years, who died of cancer when I was very young. And I lost my stepsister at that time too because we were separated. But I had memories of her and I playing in the what's it called? The treehouse, and of my stepfather building the treehouse, and of us playing softball and catch, and our cats Calico and my dog Hilda running around, and the forest that was near the house where I would go. You know, I did live in the forest for some time when I wasn't safe at my house, but I didn't see that as a negative thing. I was like, wow, how beautiful to be so connected to nature as a young child, and to kind of have this fearlessness in me to play in the river and to climb trees and to go deep, deep, deep into the forest. And it was really beautiful. And it surprised me that we so deeply try to, and I speak for myself, but I think people can resonate, the places that we've experienced the most difficult things, we can sometimes turn our back to it and never return. And it's like, I won't go back to that person, that relationship, that, you know, that piece of land, that city. And when we go back, it's interesting if we've grieved properly and we've really let ourselves feel the intensity of the sadness or the loss from that place, beyond the grief is love. And I find that when I really, really grieve and I like let myself feel the pain of the thing I've experienced to the fullest, what's left behind is simply acceptance and love. And so now it's not a negative place in my mind. It's just a place of a really difficult origin point of coming into this life. And it was one of the biggest teachers for me. It was a breeding ground for my evolution. And so I'm really grateful for it.
Mm. Yeah, you're saying that you were raised mostly by your grandmother and that there was also several deaths early on for you. I imagine this as a child. must really leave a profound mark. Is it the case for you?
Yeah, yeah. Now in my life, I've stepped into the path of being a death doula. And it's interesting because people say, "Oh, you're obsessed with death. What a morbid kind of position to take in the world." And I've joked, I'm not obsessed with death. Death is obsessed with me because it's just been there since I was young. And it felt like a curse when you're young and society feeds you the story that you're supposed to always be happy. Things are always supposed to be good. You should always kind of be in this positive space, crying a lot or feeling tension in the body. We don't really celebrate these things. And as a child, it was like one after the other. An uncle passed away, my grandfather passed away, my grandmother passed away, and I was sleeping next to her. So I woke up to her body lifeless. And that was an initiation in itself because she was like my mom. She was my world. And at that moment, I was 10. That death really touched me very deeply. My uncle touched me, my grandfather touched me, my stepfather also died around the age of 10. They were all within the same few years. But when my grandmother died, she was the last of that like group of people that had passed at that time. And then I really understood I was alone because my mother wasn't capable. She didn't have the capacity to mother me. And my grandmother had been all my attachment figures rolled up into one, a teacher, a mother, a father, a friend, a neighbor. She was so many things for me. And so it was really hard for me to like look at her body and to say anything. I didn't want to tell anybody. I remember for hours I didn't go to alarm anybody because I couldn't accept the reality. And I knew that when I said it to somebody, it would become real and my whole life would be different. And that was an initiation into deep gratitude for life because I realized at any moment, anyone could die. Every single thing is so temporal. And it was such a beautiful teaching at such a young age because we're not really taught at a young age to be grateful. We're taught kind of to be a bit individualistic and narcissistic. The whole world revolves around me, all my toys and my play dates and all these things. And that's a big existential lesson at 10 years old to say, actually, you don't get to keep all the people you love. You don't get to have life as you want it. Tension will come, confusion, doubt, your thoughts about where we even go and where we're from. It was a lot for a 10-year-old. And so it put me into my depths very quickly. But because it happened from such a young age, I was instilled with a deep sense of gratitude and a deep sense of respect for life, like a deep, deep respect. And I really knew I was alive. It like taught me like I'm alive and my grandmother's not. And we know that maybe in a intellectual way, but in an embodied way, I was like, wow, this is a privilege. I'm still here. And I want to live a good life for those that have gone. Yeah.
You said you are a death doula, and I have a slight idea of what it might be, but I'm not fully aware of what it is. Can you explain a little bit what's a death doula?
Yeah, good question. Because I'm still learning what a death doula is. A death doula is somebody that, a night walker or a friend of the void, somebody that embodies the mystery. It's someone that is willing to stand at the threshold spaces of life, whether it's grief or loss or actual death or caretaking, standing there for the caretakers that are caring for people that are dying, and being somebody that when death happens, they don't try to give it to someone else as a responsibility, like, oh, go to the hospice or go to the hospital or ask the doctor, ask the nurse. It's someone that steps in and humanizes the death process because so much, I remember hearing something a few years ago, which I really appreciated. It said, we used to go to the hospitals to heal, but now we go to die because we used to die at home. It used to be in tribe that your elders were there with you, that you caretook them, that you bathed them, that you fed them, that you didn't hide the fact that they were dying. Your children would speak to them, you would touch them, you would give them connection. But so much of that is outsourced now. You put them in the hospital, you see them during certain hours, nurses will bathe them, doctors will, care for them. But when somebody is moving towards death, I mean, can you imagine? Like, this is one of the most important things that you will ever do in your entire life. And why would we give that experience away to strangers in a hospital? And so a death doula is there to guide the family, because the family, of course, fear comes up. It's a difficult thing to watch the person that you love begin to leave this world, especially when that person begins to detach from all the things they love. So there is naturally a withdrawal. Like when the person is in a healthy way approaching their death, they will even begin to distance themselves from the people that they love the most. And so a death doula is there to mediate in the fields a relationship that it's like a conscious dissolution. We're like slowly letting the tethers dissolve, because it becomes so scary when it's hospitalized and it's sterile. And of course, sometimes we need to be in the hospital. We need specific care. But the death doula is there to really care for the caregiver's needs, the family members, the loved ones that are losing that person, and also to hold space and respect for the dying. So the person that is dying, can we still give them dignity, not speak to them like they're children or infantile, or communicate in the room with them as if they're not even there? Can we find ways, even when they stop to speak or can't communicate in any, typical ways, can we find creative ways to still include them in that process and to let them go in dignity and to let them slowly withdraw, and to answer, not give them advice, but be there to answer questions, or to give them curious questions for themselves to ask about what this means to them, to bring meaning to their dissolution, to their conclusion. And yeah, I feel that it is one of the most beautiful paths to walk, because in a world of masking and of charading around as if none of this is going to end, there's something really vulnerable when you're working with people that are dying, whether in a physical death or in an ego dissolution with medicine work or with shadow work. People are so vulnerable when all those masks drop off and they can feel themselves leaving and something being digested and then becoming or leaving. And that vulnerability is so beautiful, and you don't get to see it every day. So it's a deep honor to walk by somebody in that path. It's not morbid. It can be scary. It can bring up your own fear of your mortality. But I think it's just such a beautiful, beautiful path of love and expansion to walk.
Yeah, there's a few things that come up to me when I hear you. Both feeling touched by your story, imagining what being a death doula might be, and also seeing how in my life, when there were people lying around me, for example, I took care with my sister, we took care of our mother when she was dying of cancer. And I can so see how I would have really, really loved to have the support of someone that hold this understanding about life and death, and that would have helped us gather the gifts of this passing. And with my experience of death, I can just say, wow, what you're doing, Echo, is so necessary in this world. And also right away, something that comes up is, but that might be really scary and intense at time. Is it the case for you?
Yes. And I mean, both things exist. It's, and what I'll say, it's interesting. I've been near so many deaths before I became a death doula. And now that I've become a death doula, I haven't sat vigil or sat beside somebody at the moment dying. I'm generally helping those that are caregiving. And what has been really deep in that, because all of the deaths that I've been a part of and that I've been connected to are people that I've lost, people that I love. And, this starts with my first partner, my beloved, died in a motorcycle accident. And I was the last person to speak to him an hour before. And it was a very tense conversation. And so he left life in anger. And it probably was a big part of why he got onto his motorcycle and drove the way that he did. What is difficult for me, especially in holding space for those that are caregiving, those that are dying, is all of the unfinished business. This is where my pain comes up and my heart just gets tugged, because even when somebody is in the dying process, there's still this desire, this hope, this belief that maybe a miracle is going to happen and they're going to move through. And so sometimes people will deny up to the very, very moment of death. The person that is dying will deny it, and the people that are around them will deny it. It's even more sad. Well, both are sad, but there's a deep sadness when the person that is dying has accepted that they're dying, but the people around them cannot. And this can interrupt the death process, because the person that is grieving, they're not ready to let go. And what this shows me is many times that person maybe didn't treat the person the way that they would have liked to, or they didn't fully give them the love, or there was something they wish they said or they received from that person. And it shows me so much about how in life we protect ourselves so much. There's so much coping mechanisms. There's so many strategies for how we're going to relate to each other. I've got to withhold something from you so that I can feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And in reality, life is not safe. None of us get out of this alive. We all die. So it's actually one of the most unsafe things that you can do, is to live a human existence. And when you see people at the end of their life going with all of these regrets for what they didn't say, and those around them, all the regrets of how they didn't give the love, it is so sad, because there's no more time. And now the person is losing their functions or their senses, and you're trying to say all the things you want to, speak all the words and do all the things, but they're not in a space maybe of fully receiving it. And so you don't get the satisfaction of actually resolving whatever it is that you need to resolve. And so the lack of resolution, I think, is the most painful, but death itself is quite beautiful. I imagine it, and I don't know, I won't know until I go there, but I imagine it to be a return, not like a departure, but I'm returning to wherever it was that I came before I came into the world screaming as a baby. I imagine that if I came into the world screaming and I didn't really, I'm freaked out being here as a baby, I was probably quite happy with where I was. And I imagine that it's like a homecoming, and that whatever you believe in, God, source, universe, that I experience a sense of expansion, that I dissolve back into the everything. And maybe that thing that we're looking for our whole lives, that unity that we want, that we look for in intimacy and relationship, maybe we're always longing, and maybe we're always seeking as we live, because nothing can ever match the sensation of unity that we're going to feel after death and before birth, because I do feel it's a cycle. And so that's my way of being with the intensity of the pain or the lack of resolution, of like, okay, there must be something on the other side, because I don't believe life it's what's the word, maleficent. I feel that life is benevolent. There's always something that gives us another breath and gratitude and compassion. And so I trust that whatever it is to come in the void and beyond in the mystery is also another really beautiful experience. Yeah.
What do you think it is in society, in history, that made us as human so disconnected from the process of dying?
Well, I recently heard someone that said, I can't remember exactly how they said it. They said it in passing, and it was something like, we are a society that chases summer. We chase, and what they were saying in the meeting is like, we chase productivity, optimization. We do chase actual literal summer. A lot of people would do anything they could to get away from the winter and the cold and the longer nights. And I mean, death is the ultimate sleep. Death is the ultimate night. It's the ultimate winter. You know, we go to rest. We literally call it, we go to rest. And we're not a restful society, at least in the West. And so it makes sense to me that this thing that's about sitting down, slowing down, resting, dissolving, we put that out of sight because it's the complete polar opposite of optimization and of chasing dreams and of consuming and, you know, this transactional nature. And we can't take all of our belongings, all those certificates that you get, all the education, all the impressions that you've made upon the world, your very big voice, your success, your beauty. You have to give all of that back. You don't get to take any of it. And you're slowly giving it back as you age. You know, if we think about it, aging, I remember having this realization in a medicine journey that I had where I saw a dried rose and I thought, oh my God, I'm the dried rose. I can literally feel that as you watch this rose that's plucked, it's like blooming, it's beautiful, it's moist, it's, you know, reflecting light really beautifully, just as we are as we're younger, you know. But when we are born, we're essentially snapped from our stem. We're taken from source. And so to be given birth is to be given death. So as soon as you're coming into your human body, you've already been given time. You've been given a drying out period. And so you are the rose that is all of a sudden very beautiful and it's blooming and yeah, it's gorgeous. And as you get older, things begin to dry, the skin begins to dry, literally like a rose. You see your skin, you start to see the veins in your hands a little bit more. The skin gets a little bit more papery, just the way the rose does. And it's still beautiful. But you see society now trying to pump everything into your faces, change the hair color, put on different clothes. We all want to be the beautiful new plucked rose. But life is literally giving us an opportunity to experience our changing and to experience our death like every day as we're moving through life. Slowly, the process of time is like working on us. And then so many people are so surprised when they get to the end, so surprised that it's actually come. And I feel life is actually generous in that. And the human life is short, but it's giving you the opportunity to see yourself change and to embrace that of like, oh, time is a real thing for me here. I need to appreciate this. I need to be grateful because I can literally see it working on me. And instead we're like, no, let's change that. So we can't see any of that happening. And we try to optimize and produce and create and buy so that we don't have to focus on the fact that we are temporal experiences. We're processes that are being processed. Yeah.
Do you sometimes feel frustration or anger at the way people tend to react to the idea of death?
Not anger. I feel a deep sadness, a really deep sadness. The way that I relate, especially in intimacy, and in intimacy, whether it's romantic or friendships, because I've lost many friends and I lost my first love, death is not an abstract idea to me. It's very real. There's a tangible feeling in my body when I see those faces that have left, when I remember my grandmother that morning finding her dead. These things, these experiences have defined the way that I experience life. And when I'm in relationship to somebody, I really choose them. And it's not that I was always great at that. I'm learning, I'm human. But when I choose to be in friendship with you, or I choose to be in an intimate romantic relationship with you, I am very aware that you are a temporal experience, that at any moment you could die, and that I don't have access to you for all of life. You are literally like a shooting star in the sky, and you're going to be here for that little moment. And that little moment could be 20 years together, 30 years, it could be 5 years. But when I'm really embodying that, and I'm very present with it, I am so grateful for you in front of me. And I know that I won't always have you there. So I want to like be grateful, and I want to love you, and I want to help you make your dreams come true, and I want to know about you, and I want to be curious. And not everybody's built for that. The modern dating, scene is swipe, swipe, swipe. We want to have as many experiences. There's never enough. We want everything is greener on the other side. If you're in this partnership, you want that partnership. And I had a recent relationship dissolve in the last year, and I had reached a level in myself of such deep devotion that I could have spent like the rest of my life with this human. I really felt that feeling of, you know what, life is short. I could dedicate the next 30 to 40 years to this person. I'm going to die. Like I'm the drying rose. Like I'm just going to give myself. And he wasn't in that space. And there was that desire for more, more, more. And this isn't good enough. And it could be better here, here, here. And when you see somebody grasping for more and that is moving through life in a transactional way, and you cannot change them, you cannot force them, you're not their hero or their savior or their teacher, you step back and you give them the right to create their own path. Because also in my relationship to death, I don't want to be manipulative in my life. There are ways that we could get what we want, and there are many people that do that. But I've learned I want to see how somebody blooms. I want to give them the free will to choose me, to choose themselves. And a lot of times when you do that and you don't use strategies and you don't manipulate, you don't get what you want. But I'd rather not get what I want than take something that's not for me. But it's rare that I find an individual that's so present with their life and so grateful for what they have that we can just be together. Because there's generally some kind of masking happening. There's some kind of acting. I'm going to act like this and you're going to act like that. And there's so many good actors in the world. But I would really love to just be in presence with somebody and the awe of, you're here. You're alive at this time and I'm alive. And how crazy that we're born somewhat in the same, continuum of infinite years and that we get to know each other. It's a lottery. It's an absolute miracle to be alive within the same time period and to be able to communicate and to adventure in life together. Yeah.
So you're saying that one of the best way to help a relationship blossom is to keep the awareness of death and to talk about it within the relationship?
Not talk about it and, it could be a quite dark thing to talk about all the time. But something that I experience and what I usually go through is when somebody comes into my life and I feel a fondness for them and I feel like we have some kind of work to do, there's a resonance. Generally, what naturally happens without me trying to consciously make it happen is I will see their death. I will experience how it is that they might die. Not that I'm going into fantasy and creating these worst case scenarios or ruminating on it. But then it gives me wow, Olivier is alive right now. He's running a podcast and he's going hiking this weekend. And I think about all the things you're experiencing and I get so excited about you as a process and as an experience. And it brings me into gratitude. And there's something a woman told me last year that felt like it became a life motto. And it's so simple, but she said, it's not about having everything you want. It's about wanting everything you have, which is so profound, meaning maybe I want a certain car or a certain house or a certain job or partner, but I don't have those things right now. What I do have is this space. I have this moment with you. I have my altar next to me. I have my cacao. So instead of focusing on all the things that I might have one day, I'm like, damn, this cacao is amazing. I get to spend 2 hours with Olivier. I've got my mirth, on the altar and I can smell this in the air. And instead of focusing on everything in the future, I'm just like, this is so good. This is what I want. And this is not generally Western thinking. We're always 2 steps ahead. We're at tomorrow. We're not really in today. And so, yeah, it helps me when I have death as an ally and as a teacher. I'm very, very present because I know that not even the rest of the day is guaranteed. I could die after this podcast. And so that's comical and humorous to me that it can end at any moment. And it makes I take life a little less serious.
Is this where it brings you to a sense of celebration and therefore embracing music as you do? And because from what I understand, you are a DJ as well.
Yeah. I find my life very comical. I'm still getting to know me. It's very funny. It's people ask me who I am and I'm like, I don't know who she is yet, but she's very interesting to inhabit. And when I look back at my life, and that's the beauty of age, is that you have so much more data to understand yourself from. Because I think if we're honest with ourselves, none of us really know who we fully are. You could be anything. You could change your sexual identity, the way that you connect to your gender, religion. Everything can shift in a day depending on the things that you're exposed to and how they open up your world. I think that's beautiful that you can live so many lifetimes in one lifetime. And when I look back at myself as a child, music was always medicine for me. The trauma, the pain, the difficulty that I went through as a child, the thing that saved my life was, number one, my connection to nature. And number two, my Walkman. Like back in the day when you have the CD Walkman, you have to walk with it and you have to be very careful because if you move in a certain way, it'll skip. I would dance with that. I would have my headphones on and I have my Walkman on my palm, and I would have to move in a way that I wouldn't skip the CD. And I would go dancing in the forest. And I learned that humans, we're confused. You know, we're just here. We don't know how we got here. We don't know where we're going. It's like this collective amnesia. And I noticed that adults don't have the answers. Even the elders, in a way, are toddlers. Like if you're alive, you're a toddler in the grander scheme of things, because life is so big and expansive, and the human lifetime is just, it's so quick. And so I learned very early, don't always trust what humans say. You can be open and love them, but challenge and question everything. But listen to music, be in your body, connect to nature. Nature is the true elder. Like it's been here so much longer. Talk to the trees. You know, some of them are 900 years old. You could go talk to these ancient trees and sit by the river that's been like streaming for millennia and be in connection to the rhythm that moves through you. And so even though I went on so many different adventures, I kind of have been doing the same thing my whole life, finding a way to be in rhythm with the cycles and the nature of life. And people love music. They're seduced by music. We are dancing beings. And so if I'm going to be in relationship to death, and I want to spread that message to be an ally to the mystery, what better way to do it than through music? You know, to bring onto the dance floor these deep hypnotic sets and these rhythms from around the world to remind people of their original nature and of the uncertainty of life. And if I can play sets where I never put any words that are demoralizing or disempowering, but I put words in slowly that plant seeds for people to love themselves a bit more and to love each other more, I can, in a way, in a positive way, seduce the crowd into deeper love and appreciation and not manipulate them. You know, there's so much music that tells you to feel terrible about yourself and to make more money, be more beautiful, have more sex, all these things. But there's so much empowering music. And so I find it's an honor to be on stages and in spaces where I have sometimes hundreds of people that are listening to the music that I'm giving them, and I can promote the people in my life that are amazing musicians that spend their whole life creating music to empower people to come into their hearts. I'm like, this is magic. This is literal magic. And the body's moving out of their minds, just being free on the dance floor. I feel like a conductor of the hearts. And I'm like a child, you know, it's like me back in the forest with my CD Discman. Here I am at 41 years old on these stages playing music. And I'm like, I get paid to do this, to just be like a child pushing buttons and bringing out beautiful beats. And so it just helps me feel silly and that life is just a play and to make it enjoyable while you can. Yeah.
Yeah, I find it really inspiring to see the balance of that celebration of life and then celebration of death, and it being like one thing in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important, this phrase that you said, the celebration of life, because to me, that's what death is. When somebody dies and and we can come to some resolution ourselves to allow them to die, then there's such a connection to life of like, I can't go with them. I'm still here. What am I going to do with this time that I'm here? And, you know, when I'm on these stages and when I play like larger festivals and there's like 1,000 people in the crowd, something that I sometimes will envision, I look out and it's not morbid. It might sound morbid, but I'll imagine in 100 years from now, what would this scene look like? And I know that all of those people will be dead. Unless Elon Musk does something for us to upload our consciousness onto a computer, which I think is a terrible idea. But when I'm sitting there and I'm playing music and there's so much life in the crowd and we're just like losing it and we're just having so much fun. And then I pop to 100 years forward and I'm like, wow, everyone will be gone. And then I celebrate even more because I'm like, yeah, let's party. We're alive. And I just sometimes look at people, especially in the city, people moving really fast, hundreds of people in the streets, moving, all the public transport, everything's so fast, go, go, go. And I'm like, slow down. Like, this is it. This is what we're here for. This right here is what we're here for. You're aging as we speak. You'll never be this young, or this healthy, or this mobile again. Like, this is what we're here for. Where are you running to? And yeah. Let's celebrate life.
Why do you think it's a bad idea that people would upload their consciousness to a computer?
Good question. Is it a bad? Maybe, you know, I don't know. I don't know if it's a bad idea, but I don't know. Maybe that was where we were always going. You know, the reality is we don't know. And people, you know, fear change. And maybe this is the direction we were always going, that we were going to somehow be hybrid versions of consciousness and work with computers and become these hybrid human computer beings. But me as a human at this moment and the way I'm experiencing life, I don't know how much value it would be to be alive if you never had to die. And would you experience your full death if you knew that you were going to be uploaded to a computer? This is a real existential question. It's something I'm so happy to contemplate and to sit with. Yet I find it quite profound how short the human life is in the span of everything else, of the millennia of the world. We're like, you know, moths. Like when we look at dragonflies that have 4 to 6 months to live, I'm always curious of, does everybody have the same amount of life? But we call it 4 months, 6 months, 70 years, 700 years. Are some just kind of like if you like zoom in on a phone with your fingers and you like zoom in and everything gets like bigger, more pixelated. I wonder if we all actually have been given the same amount of time. We just experience it in a different way. And so life can get trippy when you start to ask these questions, because I imagine if we're walking towards AI and we're walking towards the uploading of our consciousness, that we were always going to walk in this direction and that there must be something beneficial about it. And maybe I won't know in my lifetime, but maybe in another lifetime I will. So who's to know if it's good or bad?
One of the things that comes to me when I hear people saying that maybe they're not going to die because technology is going to bring us to a place where we can be uploaded to a computer, or that modern medicine will help us being alive forever. But the sun is going to burn the whole planet in a few billion years. And even if we manage to get to live onto other stars, the universe seems to be going to some kind of death anyways as well. So there's no such a thing as no death. We're just postponing. And I have the thought that people that say, oh, maybe we're not going to die, maybe we're going to live forever at one point, it comes into that denial of our mortality.
Yeah, I mean, if you demystify, well, we have demystified, if you mystify everything and you take away definition, you take away all of our engineering, all of our science, all of our history, archaeological findings, if you take everything away and you just like open your eyes and all your conditioning of all the things you've been taught about what this world is, you'd probably be amazed at what you're experiencing. When I really try to sit with like dropping my understanding of what I am as a human and what this is, it is ridiculous how many things have to happen every day for us to just not die. Thousands and thousands of processes have to happen. The sun has to connect with the land in a certain way where it's not too hot, but it creates vegetation, and the sunlight, works with the water so that it doesn't dry up and it still flows. And Jupiter has to have a certain orbital, like gravitational pull that we don't all just float off into space and like combust into the stars. And all of the plant life that lives here, so many thousands and thousands of processes have to happen a day for things to be activated within these plants, to be able to be digested in our systems, for water to be at a certain level of what it contains in carbon and oxygen so that we can drink it and our bodies don't combust. So many things. It is absolutely magical, and it's beautiful that we've used our mind and our intellect to understand and define those things. But to me, this is an extraordinary experience. Like what we are experiencing is a mystical, magical experience. And we could call that mysticism, science, or evolutionary theory, all of these things, but it takes away the absolute beauty of it. And so for me, everything is going to change. Like you said, we're going somewhere. And I imagine, just as we speak about dinosaurs roaming the planet, that humans have their time. We don't want humans to go away. So we're trying to figure out every which way. But maybe, and probably, we were never going to be here forever. Nothing has been here forever. Everything is changing and it's transforming into something else. But how grand is it that we're here right now? And how grand is it that there's 8 billion of us? You can literally go out and be mirrored by 8 billion people with different skin color, different languages, different cultures. That is a magical experience. You have 8 billion oracles that are like a representation of the universe and form that's been given language to speak to you. And you could just go talk to all these universes. And each person you talk to, you get absorbed into their inner kind of like the black hole that is their world, because they're the center of their own consciousness. It is a wild butterfly effect that we get to experience. And it's extraordinary. And then we're focusing on paying taxes, and I need to have a partner, and I have to have kids at this age, and I have to do this. Why are we all trying to choose the same exact path that's been ordained, by a certain standard? There are infinite ways to experience your life, to experience love, to experience having arms and legs and breasts or cocks or pussies or whatever it might be. And we want to subscribe to like one set of standards. It's crazy to me, like the way that we live. And we need to mystify our life again. Yeah.
Talking about body parts, I did a grieving ceremony with you a few weeks ago. I'm actually still recovering my vocal cords from grieving with anger, which was a really meaningful process for me, by the way. And nudity was very welcome in the whole process you were facilitating. I'm wondering, how do you see nudity in society today? How is nudity perceived? Why is it something that you highlight as being necessary in some occasions? And yeah, can you talk to me a little bit about nudity?
Yeah. I spent, for those that are just listening and can't see, I spent my life in a female body that's quite small, that has a certain level of, say, beauty and a certain Western ideal that was projected onto me that really left me, there's that objectification of all of our bodies. But my experience of my body for the first few decades of my life was that it wasn't my own, and that it also needed to look a certain way. If I was going to receive love, I needed to be a certain weight. I needed to be a certain color. I needed to be perceived in a certain way. And also when it came to my genitals, it's like all that I saw I wasn't watching porn, but all that I saw around me were like these perfect kind of feminine, female forms that had a very specific way of looking, which I didn't look like. And so it taught me to be very ashamed of my own body, to be ashamed of my sex, to fear if I was coming into intimacy with someone, instead of being in the mystical experience of lovemaking, which is, again, profound, to find somebody that you feel safe with, if we get that honor, because that's not a lot of what people experience in sexuality. But if two people can come together and make love, this is a mystical, profound experience. The fact that we can enter each other in this way and breathe together and unify, wow, so beautiful. And instead of being in the magic of that experience, I was thinking, what do I look like? Do they like my genitals? Is it pretty? Do they think it's ugly? What does it smell like? What does it look like? All this fear in my head of, I'm basically an object. I need to be a beautiful object that is, worthy enough to be receiving this. So I wasn't even receiving the love. It was like I was acting in sexuality. I was doing the movements and moving my body in a certain way that I felt would be seen as desirable. And so for me, in grief ceremonies, this is where we begin. We can speak about our grief. We could tell the story, but it's so in our bodies. And somebody standing in a room of people that are expressing in a big way, the most terrifying thing that you could say sometimes is nudity is allowed. And then all the stuff comes up of like, oh my God, I couldn't possibly be in a space where people see me. What are they going to think? They're going to be judging. And so I offer that space for people to finally take off the objectification of, because in these spaces, it's not sexual. It's not, no one's connecting in a sexual way. When you undress, it's for yourself. It is for you to reclaim that you are allowed to be exactly as you are, that you don't need to look a certain way to receive love, that you don't need to, look a certain way to belong to the tribe. And so it's like a stripping of all the masks that we've covered ourselves in with, whether it's like certain clothing or whatever it may be that makes you feel better in your body, taking all your armor off and like bearing yourself. And it's you reclaiming that love of like, actually, it's okay for me to be this. And again, as a woman in her 4th decade of life, there's a whole initiation of noticing as a woman. In my 20s, I wanted to be skinny. Everything was about being skinny. Every woman, and I think many women can relate to this, and men, I wanted to be thin. And that was the thing. It's always like working to be thinner, thinner, thinner. And then you get to your 40s and it's all about being younger. I want to be younger, younger, younger. And then you'd be happy to be a little plump and have a little bit of weight on you. And I thought, I don't want to live my life like that, because in 20 more years, when I'm 60, if I'm so lucky to have 20 more years of life, which I can't just presume that I get to be old. If I was 60, I'd be stoked to have the body I have today. I would be like, oh my God, I'm so hot. I'm so beautiful. I want to go make all the love. I want people to see this. It's amazing. And I thought if I would celebrate it at 60, why would I not celebrate it now? Because it's only going to get saggier and stranger looking. Weird stuff starts to happen to your body. As you dry out, things happen. And so I don't have the perfect body. I've got cellulite. I've got thinner skin. I've got gray hairs. Like, I'm aging, and I'm at a place where I just don't care. Because if you are going to love me based off of what I look like, I can do without that. I want to be loved as I am, and I want to love as people are. I want them to feel that I love them beyond what they look like. And to give people a space in community to experience that is such a profoundly healing thing to do. And I just want us to all be respectfully naked together without that vampiric energy of taking, and to be like innocent children at play in the bathtub, throwing rubber duckies and being silly. Yeah. Before all those stories came in and told us we weren't enough.
A lot of what I'm hearing from you is this idea of putting a perspective in front of our eyes to be able to seize the beauty of the present moment, understanding the idea of death and that we will die, and therefore being able to enjoy life, seeing that our body is going to change so that we can enjoy our body the way it is right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, again, we're mystical creatures having a mystical experience, and it makes me sad. It's one of those things that makes me sad when I see someone shunning away in the corner or keeping their voice down really low or hunching over in their body. And you could tell like they're trying to be invisible. And if they're invisible, no one will see what's wrong with them. But also, if they're invisible, no one will see what's absolutely right about them. And so I see so many people shrinking themselves and making themselves digestible. And I am not digestible. I trigger people. There are things in me. I'm not an easy woman to live with in a sense. Like, 41, single, I have difficulty in intimate relationships because I demand, not in a forceful way, but a level of transparency. Like, why do I need to hide things? I'm very open. I overshare. I've joked sometimes that I should write a book called Things I Overshared on the Internet. And I thought, who cares? My life is not even my own. I'm experiencing it as it happens. So I share it with people, and people are like, you're brave and you're courageous. And I'm like, am I? I'm just living. I'm living my life and I'm sharing it with people. And yeah, I've gone on a tangent now from what you shared. What was the seed point of this? What did you start it with?
The idea of perspective, that imagining other realities, seeing what we like, imagining death, imagining another age, that all this looking at things from a perspective, from different point of views,
Yeah,
bring about this appreciation.
well, I think that comes back to look at your life and notice if you're actually happy with like being here. Are you seeking? And those are the entry points onto the path even deeper. If you notice you want to look a different way, or you want to make more money, or you want to have a certain standard of respect in a certain professional space, why? Why do you want more money? Why do you want your name to have some certain meaning to it? Why do you want a certain level of beauty? And beneath all of it is really belonging. We want to belong. We want to feel loved. And that's available. That's really available when we can be vulnerable enough to just say, what we're feeling. And I noticed that for myself, when I'm in these transpersonal spaces holding grief ceremony or temple, there's so much love when somebody can just share their insecurities. Like, I feel so connected to them. They become more beautiful and radiant to me because it's real. And when somebody's got they're very well curated, and the way that they stand and their stature and the way they talk and all the certificates they have, this doesn't inspire me. And I know that it inspires certain people, that it's very impressive. But actually those words are different. There are many impressive paths, but not inspiring paths. For me, if you're impressive, somebody will feel less than around you. If you're inspiring, somebody will feel allowed around you. They will feel that they have the permission to be more of themselves. And our culture is very impressive, and I wish that it was much more inspiring.
I really love how you're pinpointing that.
We do live in a culture of comparison, and something that people that really get to know me can be inspired by me if they see that I allow permission for them to be as they are. But something that I have experienced is people have an impression of me because from what they see of me delivering in terms of being on stage or facilitating spaces, and they see me in this position of power doing something that's creating a certain ripple. And it can induce fear. It could bring up fear of comparison. Will she like me? If they come close enough, they'll see that I don't take myself so seriously. But if you look at the certificates and you look at my website, there are things that are impressive, the conversations that I've had, the life that I've led. But I don't do that to impress anyone. If anything, I'm trying to inspire myself. I really am curious about life. So I'm constantly eating knowledge through different courses and through different books and podcasts, but it comes from a place of genuine curiosity for the small amount of time, the finite time that I have here as a human. So I want to do all of these exciting things. But I think it's important when people come into your field that you do your best to create space for them and to allow them to feel you can't give them safety. You're not their hero, but to allow them to know that they can come as they are. They don't need to wear masks around you. And also to even start to ask those questions of curiosity so they feel your genuine interest in them as well. Not that just you have so much to impress upon and give, but really bring questions of curiosity so that they can see that, oh, you're interested in my world. Even though your world might be more impressive and you have all these things, my world is also important and exciting. And even without all those certificates, I'm a whole universe within myself. And so it's important to remind ourselves to be welcoming when new people come into our world, because we don't know what insecurities or coping mechanisms or strategies they might have been conditioned with. And you could be the person that finally gives them, a table to speak at and lets them drop those defenses and open their heart a little bit more.
Yeah. How does someone who is feeling lonely, far from their family, maybe doesn't have a family, how do they go towards belonging? Where will they find belonging? Because you can go and hang out with some people, but that doesn't mean you're going to experience that.
This is such an individual path. I I can say from resonance for myself as like somebody of diaspora, diaspora is those without home, those like uprooted from where they came. And being in London at the moment, it's like so full of diaspora. You have people from all over. And if you don't see what it is that you want to fit into, you build it. And I know that can feel a bit daunting. But for me, it could be one person that you build something with. It's like finding one thing, one activity that you're excited about, or one person that you're curious about, and requesting like, hey, let's meet up every few weeks and have a coffee or a matcha and talk about this or that and get to know each other's worlds and slowly invite in more people. Or maybe you find yourself in a very specific community and you invest in that. How can I really be involved? For me, ecstatic dance has been a massive belonging for me. I found a bunch of people around the world that don't drink alcohol and that don't do drugs and that come together and they dance on a dance floor without speaking, without phones. And they live in their bodies. They inhabit their bodies in that time, and they dance weirdly and strangely, and they make funny noises. And I remember I cried the first dance I went to about 9 years ago, because I'd never known that there was a space where people that don't drink alcohol could meet and dance, because I love dancing, but I didn't love drinking culture. And so I really invested in that community. And I attended every weekend. I went to Sunday dances. I slowly let my guards down, and I would talk to a person or two after dance. And I slowly planted myself in it, because I wasn't as confident then as I am now. But there was a growing confidence of just being vulnerable and even sharing with somebody after dance, like, yeah, I don't really know anybody here, and I hope to make friends, and I'm new to this country. And, slowly it built, and now it's a global movement. And wherever I go in the world, there will be an ecstatic dance. And even if I don't know any of those ecstatic dancers, I know the practice of ecstatic dance, and I'm immediately, in the inertia, in that space of belonging. And that feels like such a gift for somebody who doesn't know where her home is. I don't know where I belong. I don't know what peoples, what tribe I'm a part of, but I know I'm invited into that tribe wherever I go in the world. And so if you want it, it's there. And there are people that feel just like you if you don't feel that you belong. And it's just about being vulnerable enough to let people know, like, hey, I want community. I want to belong. I want to be cared for. I want to be loved. And I want to give love.
For people who have never heard of what is ecstatic dance, can you give us a little description?
Mm-hmm. Ecstatic dance is the practice of coming to the dance floor, going on a journey for about an hour and a half to 2 hours of movement where you don't use your phone, you don't wear shoes, you don't speak with your voice, you don't say words, and you just dance for an hour and a half. You could dance by yourself, or you could dance in connection to other people. You can make animal noises, you can crawl, and you could be weird. You don't have to be a professionally trained dancer. You can just wiggle and you can just make strange movements. The weirder it is, the more exciting it is, I think. And it's open to all ages. It's open to everyone. And it's, yeah, it's been such a medicine for me. So I definitely encourage it.
Yeah, I also absolutely love it, and I resonate with what you're saying. You have been working within law as well. Is that the case?
I had been working within political science and was working towards international law.
Okay.
So I did an internship at the UN, and then I got bogged down by the bureaucracy and decided I didn't want to follow that path.
I think there's a lot of people that are doing something that doesn't really feel aligned to them. And for these people, you went a certain path and then you changed everything. Any advice or any life experience on how the process was for you could share to support those who would like to make a move for themselves?
Well, let's see what comes out here. I'm sure a practical tool will come out towards the end. But so I finished my master's degree, and I had been in school for 6 years. I had spent so many hours, so much to do this degree and both of these degrees. And I remember in high school, I was literally from my junior year, which is 2 years before graduation in the US, I was applying to every scholarship you could imagine. I was super intellectual. I was top of my class. And I got so many scholarships. I had no friends. I had no relationship really to the relational field because I was really in my trauma then. I was really protecting myself, and protection meant getting myself out of my childhood home as quickly as possible. So it was all about the mind. It was all about intellectualizing, being the smartest, getting all of the things so I could leave. And then I left, and I thought, what is it that I want to be in the world? And I had this desire. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to save the world. I was like the total hero complex, the mother of the world. I wanted to go out and save the world. And so I went to college and I did my 4-year degree first, my what is it called? Bachelor's, yeah, BA. I did my BA. And then I did my MPA, my master's in political administration. And after my master's, I applied for a job at a law firm in Austin, Texas. And it was a very prestigious law firm. A lot of students wanted it. There were, I can't remember, but dozens and dozens of applications. It was quite a deal to get this job. And I got it. Out of everyone, I got the job. I worked in a high rise, like one of the massive buildings that's right in front of the Capitol, which is like the White House of Texas. Very prestigious, very impressive. And this young girl who had graduated very early with honors. And I had the dream job. And this is what I wanted. I did all the things right. I worked really hard. I didn't really have a personal life. I did all the things. And I was there for about 6 months. And I kept not getting in trouble because the partners of this law firm loved. They were very kind men. I want to even say their name, but I won't say their name here. But it was a funny name of the law firm. Yeah, they were just like very kind to me, very generous with their time. I was very young for graduating. I was about, I'm going to say 20, maybe even 22 when I first started, which is really young to come out of your MPA. And I was doing casework for them. But I was always leaving my office to deliver the mail. Like the mail guy would come in and I would be like, oh, don't worry about it. I'll take the mail around. And so I'd push the little carts around and I'd go to everybody's office and I would deliver their mail. And because I loved talking to people, I wanted to know what was happening in the office. I wanted to socialize. And after about 6 months of being there, I was good at my job, but I wasn't great at it. I didn't love doing casework. It was very bureaucratic. And I remember being called into their office, and I remember because it was such a sweet day, and they said, we're not firing you, but this is not where you want to be. You don't belong in 4 walls. Like, you need to go out. And they even joked, they said, you're going to have your own TV show one day. And I thought, like, what TV show am I going to have? And they were like, you need to go out and explore. And so they gave me this really beautiful, like, severance package, which is ridiculous because I'd only been there 6 months. You know, they didn't really owe me anything, but they saw my potential. They saw my creativity, and they like pushed me out of the nest. I felt like they were like fathers that like pushed me out of the nest and encouraged me to go out in the world. And internally, I knew I also didn't really want to be there. And I knew that I was choosing it because it was prestigious and I had worked so hard and I'd only just graduated from my MPA. And so something in me, which I feel grateful for, that I do not feel is mine, that I feel is ancient, that exists in me and unfolds from me, from my grandmother, my mother, my grandfathers, everyone in my lineage, I accepted that. I didn't force myself back in. I didn't convince myself out of it and say, no, the responsible thing to do is this. I took the money. My friends from Australia were visiting me. They had already been trying to get me to go down to Latin America with them. And I said, I can't go to Latin America. I've got this job. I have responsibilities. And I went home and I said, guess what? I got let go from my job today. And they said, oh, I'm so sorry. And we mourned and, like, we're so sorry. And then they look at me and they're like, does that mean you can come to Latin America with us? And I was like, yeah. So we took a Greyhound bus to Mexico, and I decided I would go until I ran out of money. And I didn't run out of that money for months because we were young vagabond travelers that were like eating avocado in hostels, sleeping 8 people to a room. And that was the beginning of my nomadic life, which I continued on from and went on the spiritual path with yoga and all of the other things. But what I would say about changing things, if you feel in your body that you're not a full yes, allow there to be spaciousness for another path to reveal itself. Something that we even speak about in romantic relationships is a successful marriage or a successful relationship. And I remember a man that I knew that was coming out of a divorce. He had been married for 17 years. And he said, I really wish that we could change the definition of a successful marriage to include leaving a marriage when it was the right moment. He's like, could that not be a successful marriage, is leaving when you know that your work is done? Why does those 17 years have to be, wrong? And it was the same for me. I went to school for 6 years. And many people would say that I failed my career path, that, oh, wow, you wasted all those years that you went to college. And it's no, I fully put my heart into it and my dedication. And very quickly, why is it not successful? That very quickly somebody else saw in me that it wasn't the right path for me and that I agreed. It's like we were in a conscious uncoupling in a way, me and the law firm. And I heard what they said. I listened to them. And inside my body, I heard my yes. And my yes was like, you are correct. And I didn't fight them. And I wish more and more of us would live inside of our bodies and dance and go for runs and work out so that our body was attuned to our yeses and nos so that we wouldn't have to go to our minds for counsel. Our body would say, this isn't fear, because sometimes we get fear and intuition mixed. But if we were so attuned and embodying our bodies, our nervous system would know, this isn't my way. And we could trust that. Yeah. And so I'd say my practical tool would be, how often do you live in your body compared to how often do you live in your mind? Do your choices come from your mind or do they come from your gut? And if you don't trust your gut because it's more fear-ridden and it's been conditioned to be in fear, how can you slowly drip back down into your body, develop your intuition so that you can begin to trust yourself more?
And how do you do that? Because I think a lot of people have no idea what does that mean to live in your body. It's like, well, I got a body, yeah, but I'm living in my body. Like, what do you mean?
I mean, every day choosing to do something that puts you deeper into like your blood and your bones and your physicality, even like praying to your body. When I wake up, I'll look at my hands and my feet and I'm like, okay, I'm here again. And I'll move them around and I wiggle and I tune in with like how my body's feeling that day. How can I move it in a way that feels good For me, that's yoga, like the physical asana practice of yoga. I'm very grateful to have found this path in my early 20s. So I've been on this path for more than 20 years. And I live here. I'm not just a mind that has a physical experience. Like, I am a body that's having a mental experience as well. There is a duality here. And if you know that you're a very, very mental person, you're constantly in your mind, find a practice, a physical practice that allows you to come out. For me, because I had so much trauma and so much wounding that kept me like in my mind, in my anxiety, planning, needing to know everything, I took quite an extreme path back into my body, which was I became a trained skydiver. I became a trained paraglider. I was doing rock climbing, like doing multi-pitch rock climbs, and highlining, like walking, tight ropes between cliffs, jumping out of hot air balloons and helicopters. Like, I really went to the extreme to come back into a very numb, dissociated, traumatized body. And not everybody has to do that. But my path in was all the things that scared me. Those were the things I did. So if I was afraid of heights, if I was afraid of the ocean, I learned how to surf. I learned how to jump off of things. And I really started to live in my body. And so my body became, or my mind became the servant to my body instead of my body the servant to my mind.
One of the understandings I have of people that have gone through a lot of trauma is that they will tend to gravitate towards activities that are extremes. I imagine as a way of connecting to something else because the reality they live in is potentially too challenging or painful. Is it something like that for you?
I think there's a complexity and there's multiple layers to that. But I do feel there's a truth in it because my body was really dissociated. I went through a lot of sexual abuse. As a woman that has a certain level of beauty, there's a gaze on you as you're growing up from a very young age, which we need to talk about more in society. We all have different ways in which that comes in, but we look at beauty as if it's some gift, but in a way it can be a distraction. It can also be a curse. And it also puts eyes on you in a way that aren't always loving and that aren't always there to help you feel safe. So growing up in that experience, what can happen for somebody that has that look upon them is lots of people's projections and our fantasies got projected onto me for a very young age, which shut my body down. I left a lot. Dissociation is a superpower. And I'm grateful that we have it because it allows us to leave our bodies when it's not safe to be in our body. And so my soul, my being, whatever we want to call it, was kind of floating in space a lot around me, but not in me, because my body was not a safe place. It was something that was like being owned and possessed by other people. And then I perpetuated that violence on myself because I lacked worth. I lacked confidence to feel like I even had ownership over this. And now I've learned that this is my body, the being that lives in here. I get to love Echo. I get to be in here. Like, my first relationship is with this being, this body. And so I really protect her. I really take care of her. And I didn't when I was younger. I put her in very familiar, dangerous places. But luckily for me, finding extreme sports, from a young age, I was jumping out of trees. I was jumping off of roofs. I was quite wild. And I can see that there was almost like my soul was calling me back into form. It's like, okay, if I scared the shit out of you and you do these crazy things, you'll have to come back in. You're going to have to land. You're going to have to, fly. You're going to have to do these things. And I did notice in the extreme sports field that you had different subsects of it. And you had the very spiritualists that were like doing these things because they were really connected to source and feeling the confidence to like push edges of what was possible in human form. But you also had people that had no respect for their human body or life, that were willing to throw themselves off cliffs and out of planes because they didn't really want to be here anyway. And they weren't really here. So what did it matter if they threw themselves out of these spaces? And I believe I was somewhere in between. It wasn't as if I had a death wish, but because I wasn't really here anyway. It was almost like, whatever. Like there was a sense of fearlessness.
Mhm.
And the more and more that I am embodied, I'm very cautious. I do things that are quite wild and crazy, but with like a deep sense of caution. And so, yeah, I think it's important when we see how we're trying to embody ourselves, what's the intention behind it? Is there respect for ourselves? Is there a lack of respect? Is there a confidence? Is there a lack of care for what happens to us? And it's like learning to be a really good mother and father to ourselves. Like, why am I doing that? Why am I dating that person? Why am I doing that activity? What is that job that I'm doing? Um, why am I drinking alcohol? Why am I, whatever it might be, why am I doing drugs? Questioning without judgment our decisions and our choices each day, because we'll start to see, the things that we're doing, what is escapism and what is evolutionary? What are we doing to expand our edges so that we can live a more fearless life? Or what are we doing to escape the reality that we're in this, finite material form?
Let's say I've spent the day on my computer. There is some stress in me. What is one thing that I can do to be more embodied right now?
Well, you can't, maybe some people can't see me because they're listening now, but I'm making little Sufi circles with my hips at the moment. I noticed even on the spiritual path that there was this kind of reward system of being really still and sitting and just like enduring almost our life. And I think as a businessman or woman or business being, we're also rewarded for like sitting at our desks with our straight spine, being on our computers, drinking coffee so that we can be this optimized machine. And at some point I was trying to ascribe to that as a meditator, like sitting perfectly still, being very Buddha-like. But then my back would hurt or my hips would ache. And now, what I would inspire people to do is to like really listen to your body, even when you're doing things that are very mental and your mind has to be quite stimulated. Like, can you move your body even in micro movements and follow the impulse and take deep breaths and kind of open the chest and like bring the shoulders down the back and find a way to move even in stillness that allows you to be a movement, like a being that has a spine and that has a diaphragm and that has a belly. You're not meant to be this robotic statue. You're not a Greek statue of Alexander the Great. You're a living body. And I think it's important that we remind ourselves we're not machines. Like we're not meant to be optimized. We're meant to be experienced. And society wants you to be a machine. It wants you to like pump caffeine and coffee into you so you can go, 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 go. But can you come off the stimulants a bit? And can you find softer things that allow you to slow down? And if you have to move fast, can you do it at a slower pace? And yeah, it reminds me of the Taoist proverb, one of my favorites, which is the slower you go, the faster you get there. Because if you
Yeah,
go fast, yeah.
I love that. One phrase that I really like is taking time saves time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While you were speaking, I started to move a little bit as well and just follow what my body wanted to do. And I can definitely see that even just that, I feel more present right now. Echo, you do a lot of different types of workshops, courses, you facilitate grieving practices, one-on-one sessions. Can you tell me a little bit about what is it that you're bringing into the world and what people can do with you?
Well, there's so many things. It's hilarious. Like I'm like a life hobbyist, like I'm an IFS therapist. I'm an internal family systems therapist, which works with parts, which is so beautiful to work with all the different layers of ourself to come into deeper harmony. And I mix that with Shibari, which is interesting, and Reiki. So I also do Reiki and I work with the ropes. So if you don't know Shibari, Shibari is the Japanese art of bondage and rope tying. This can be used in the BDSM space more in a sexual way, but the way I work with it is really bringing people into a therapeutic space, a therapeutic session of working with the parts of them that don't feel safe, the parts that want to surrender but don't feel safe to surrender, the parts that want to come into power but don't want to dominate, and reclaiming any stuck energy or any energy that's, has people curling in on themselves and in that invisible space, how to reclaim the disowned parts of ourselves. And I also I have a mystery school, so mystery yoga school, which is along the classical path of Tantra and connected to Shaivism and the Vajrayana path, the Diamond Way. And it's that space of learning and walking the path of knowing that duality is here, that we have our form and we also have consciousness and expansion, but learning to be in the world, but not of the world, like being so directly attached to it that we're not able to be more curious. And so the mystery school, it's partially online, partially in person. And so if you're interested in like really going deep, this is like a 5-month long journey that you do with me, partially in person, partially online, and my co-teachers. And it's a real kind of underworld initiation, a place of really looking at the void, looking at our death, going into practices and contemplations that kind of uproot the floorboards of what you've created for yourself and rebuilding, like step by step, what it is that you want to experience. And I DJ, I facilitate, I produce music, and I take people through deep ceremonies of catharsis and shadow work and reclamation of self. And all of these things that I do look different in all of the different places. They shift and they change and they transmute. And I'm never in one place for too long, which I would like roots, but I'm a wandering nomad and a seeker. And so that looks different in all of the different places and the phases of my life. So I'm constantly shifting. I'm a shapeshifter. And so are the practices that I offer.
Yeah, I'm very excited to do more of those. I've had one experience that was very profound and I loved it. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, sharing a bit of you with me today. It's been such a pleasure. I'm super grateful, and I hope we will have a lot more conversations in the future. Yeah, so thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I'm very honored.